Great. Everybody, welcome to the live stream. Just as the thumbnail and the title suggested, there is some data, maybe some strong data that would take a look at to sell in May and go away. So we're going to take a look at what that data actually is, how things are correlated to the traditional market, and just exactly what is going on and how it might be attractive for some people. Personally, not for me, but that's not what it's all about. It's about you and making the best decision. So we'll take a look first at a Squawk Box interview, Fairlead Strategies analyst on Bitcoin to a rally in May. Then we'll take a look at is Bitcoin correlated and what's really the interest level. Also, we'll take a look at historically how everything has done, going over all the months, and we're going to use a little data from Into the Cryptoverse, Ben's website. And lastly, we'll talk about what I'll be doing during these months. And surprise, it's DCA and a wealth preservation. So we'll take a look at all those things. But first, let's take a look at what is going on into the market. So if you're here for the live stream, welcome. I know it's a little bit later. Had to do some things in the morning, play volleyball on the beach. And so that's why it's a little bit later today. So sorry about that. But just so you know, if you're here for the live stream, welcome. Thanks for showing up. I appreciate it. If you're here to watch the recording later, just know there's going to be timestamps underneath so you can jump ahead, do whatever you want to do because time is precious. And then also just know that the stories or the news takes about 15, 20 minutes. And then we do 5 questions in 5 minutes at the very end, a little Q&A. So stick around for that. So let's jump into it and take a look at what exactly is going on in the market. Today's boring. I'll be honest with you. It's a sideways, not a big deal. I mean, not for everything. Bitcoin is down a little bit, 1%, whatever. Ethereum, 1.3, Tether, nobody cares. Binance, da, da, da. But look at Cardano, just going crazy. 10% on a day where nothing really is going on, 34% for the week. So congratulations, all you Cardano holders. Great job of not selling. And it finally peaks up above $1. So that's great. Terra, which is a fantastic look. That project is doing great things. And I think that when we talked about this yesterday, Do Kwon, and how they're actually putting in a marvelous amount of money into Bitcoin, we'll see if that whole 3 billion goes in. Solana number 9, and so on and so forth. So let's see. Anything big today besides Cardano? 4% for Ethereum Classic. Sure. 7.9 for Axie Infinity. All right. You know what I like about Axie Infinity is that you can play that. You can scholarship somebody. They can play it for you. You guys can split the profits. The problem is what I would like to see is a play to earn game on mobile. Sound off in the comment section because I think that will be the next big thing. So, oh, wow. ApeCoin went up 10%. Sure. Good luck with that one. Be careful, but that's not the thing I'm going to get into. That's just me. All right. So that's what going on in the market. Let's jump into it, huh? Time's precious. So this one, we had it was a pretty good interview on Squawk Box. And before we get into the Squawk Box, she's always, what they're going to talk about is the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ being correlated. And we'll get into some data points, but just so you know, if you take a look at the S&P 500 today, it's down just a little bit, just like we are right now. If we take a look at the last 5 days, it kind of looks like us, doesn't it? In the cryptoverse, we've got a nice little rally, then a little bit of a dip. Take a look at NASDAQ, same thing. Down for today, or the last 5 days, it was looking pretty good. Then just a little bit dip. Same thing we've seen over in crypto and digital asset world. So when we take a look here, I'm going to play this video. And this is one of the analysts from Fairfield Strategies. And what she talks about as far as like May and the things that are going on, I think have direct relevance to what we're trying to do here in the crypto space. Just take a listen. What I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to share the actual tab so you can actually hear it. I think it's best to do it that way. And I'm going to mute myself.
All-time highs, and that could make it difficult in your view, even though the downside in Bitcoin you think is 38,000, and it's been challenged a few times, and that's positive, but you don't think new highs are in the cards for Bitcoin. And then we'll get to the S&P.
That's right, for Bitcoin. And Bitcoin actually is providing kind of cues for the S&P 500. We saw its corrective phase late last year ensue before the corrective phase in the S&P 500. We could actually translate that to just high beta stocks in general as well. Look at the software sector for one. It started correcting late last year ahead of the correction in the major indices. So we look to these kind of higher beta phase of the market, sort of the real risk on assets, including Bitcoin, for cues as to the next step for the S&P 500. Bitcoin has stabilized. Of course, it's seen a loss of downside momentum after nearly halving itself. And that support around 38,000 is a very important level. We're glad to see it having held, except it does not mean that it's in the clear here. We have a loss of long-term upside momentum behind all risk assets. And that tells us that this year is probably more of a range-bound year. We're likening it to somewhat of 2018, where for the S&P 500, we saw a corrective phase earlier in the year, a big sort of mid-year relief rally, and then a massive correction at year end. So we use that as our analog for this year. And of course, we did see that corrective phase about 15% for the S&P 500. And now we think Bitcoin, S&P 500, they're embarking on what is an intermediate term relief rally. Perhaps it carries us up to about May, which is, seasonally a very normal time for the market to start to meet resistance.
No. The market, to me, a little bit of resistance, which if you take a look at what's been going on, there's been a lot of resistance along the way just this year, January, February, and March. Hopefully, April's a little bit better, but I got to tell you, it'll just come down to a couple of factors. Hopefully, we'll see those things. But that's just that first part. Now let's talk about, because they were talking about correlation. So the question then is Bitcoin correlated to the markets? I think we just saw. And what's the interest level going on? So if we take a look here, Bitcoin's correlation to S&P 500 hits 17-month high. That's pretty high. Here's what we got. The 90-day correlation between Bitcoin and Wall Street's benchmark equity index, the S&P 500, rose to 0.49 on Friday. Just so you know, anything that goes on the continuum between -1 and 1 means it is highly correlated. 0, not so much, and negative means it's going in the opposite direction. So 0.49, it's inching closer to being lockstep with NASDAQ and S&P 500. And this is the highest since October 2020, according to data by Arcane. Bitcoin's correlation to the S&P 500 has only been higher for 5 days in Bitcoin's history. Showing that the current correlation regime is unprecedented throughout time. And then if we take a look there, now we're going to talk about the interest level, because I don't know if you've seen it, but I know I'm heavily interested in crypto. Maybe you are if you're watching this channel. But the question is, how are the common folk? How are the people that are out there? And what do they say as far as do they have really interest levels? Now, you can give some anecdotal evidence and go, well, I had a couple of people come up to me and say that they were interested into it. But really, let's take a look at one of the most powerful things we can take a look at as far as the interest levels, Google Trends. That'll tell us a little bit of the story, not the whole story, but a little bit. So judging by Google search trends, interest in crypto have hit a short-term peak, or actually a long-term low. Global interest in virtual currencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum are 70% below their 2021 highs. Of course, because it's not sexy and it's not exciting, because now it's boring, because everything's moving sideways. So who wants to be in this type of market? Me. I do. This is where I make all my money, when people are bored and don't give a crap and they just move away. I love these times. Global interest in virtual currencies like Bitcoin, I said, query volumes for NFT are also pretty weak at 65% lower than the January 2022 highs. And of course, we can see that when you have a high interest level, you get a pouring in of retail, which sometimes some people may call that dumb money, but whatever, that's their prerogative. And when you see a lot of people come in, that means FOMO and the prices go ballistic. And then you see stuff like this, April 2021, interest spikes, price doubles, and it went from 30,000 to 60,000. Down here, not so much, but it still hit an all-time high. If you're interested in this space, we'd recommend waiting for search interest. So that got me thinking, well, how does that really look on a continuum as far as the Google Trends? Because you can dice data any way you want to, right? So for Bitcoin, these search terms, it's not going to give you on Google Trends, it's not going to give you the exact amount of what the search queries are for. Like, it can't just tell you 1,975,000. You can get that data, but you have to pay for it. And if you're into Google AdWords like I am, you can get it, but I'm not going to get that for this one. This is just good enough. What it is a continuum. 100 means it's the most interest you've ever seen for searches for this search term, which is Bitcoin. And from 2004 to present, which Bitcoin wasn't even around at that time, but 2009, we'll say, all the way to now, the highest search terms it ever was in December 2017. Oh, those are good times, right? That was the most. Second highest was right around here, February 2021. Good times. Nice price action. Then down here, when again in May, remember that one, 64? Now here we are sitting down this paltry 29 out of 100. So no one's really interested. How about cryptocurrency? Same type of thing. We peaked up in December 2017, 100. Now we're down here, 23. That's sad. Then NFT was a little bit different. NFT actually hit its stride in January 2022, and now here we are, like 34. I mean, even Bored Ape Yacht Club is having problems. So that's where we are as far as the interest level for the average individual, the average person, the average retail investor. Of course, we know that there's a huge interest in institutions, and everybody talks about how, hey, just wait, those institutions are right around the corner. Sure. But for right now, they're probably buying OTC, which isn't moving the market too much, and that gets boring. So what does that lead to? Well, the question then becomes, well, historically, how has everything been? Because this whole theme of selling in May and going away, is that true? Let's take a look. So if we take a look here, this is Ben's great website, Into the Cryptoverse. There's a link in the description below. It's a paid website. Man, I got to tell you, totally worth it. And it goes through everything, market cap, risk, and everything else. It's not an affiliate link. Me and Ben and James, we do that DCA show, so I always like to talk about it. But it is good stuff. Here is the Bitcoin monthly returns table from 2010 to 2011, 2022. And we can see, and we've talked about this ad nauseum, I think, that January is a pretty crappy month. I mean, 30% on average if you add all the different years up, right? And February, not too bad, right? March is like the worst statistically, historically. It's not the greatest. There's a lot of red in here. And I mean, except for 2013 when it was 176%, which is pretty not too bad. But historically, not the greatest. April kind of turns things around. April is probably roughly the best month you can have in crypto. Then it kind of slides away in May. Sell in May, go away. And you can see June, July, August, September, not so great. So maybe this whole thing about sell in May and go away is actually something that you can use not just in the traditional markets, but maybe potentially in crypto digital assets. And let me just say this to make things crystal clear. I know some people say, well, oh, now Rob, he wants to sell and get out. Listen, man, ma'am, whoever, I'm not going anywhere. I've been in this since 2017, and where I made all my money, I know people get sick of me saying it, but there's some people who are new. So just to make this crystal clear, I made all my money dollar cost averaging when the market sucked in 2018, when it was down in the pits and nobody wanted to be here. That's when I made a ton of money. So if you're thinking about it, and I can't give you investment advice, this is just investment opinion, what I have done. There's probably way better ways to make a ton of money. Just go find that magic YouTuber out there. I mean, there's tons of websites, but that's how it worked for me. So like when these things come, like when and sell in May and go away, probably not going to sell too much, because for me, what's the point? And then you have to think about some other things, taxes, how hard or how easy it is to get back in, what your specific goals are. So these are just things that we talk about to get the wheels turning in your head. And I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just telling you that historically, hey, it's a pretty good month to actually sell and get out, because June, July, August, September are not the greatest. And that leads me to my next point. This is a pretty good article. I need to link this in the description. I didn't do it, sorry, but I'll link it after this. And it's from May 1st, 2021. Should you sell in May and go away? This is from Forbes. This is from Simon Moore, senior contributor, and he looks at some pretty good data points. So here's what it says. For decades, the idea that you should sell in May has been an important part of stock market folklore. I used to hear about this a long time ago. I was never in the stock market. When I got a crypto, I heard this a lot. It's sometimes called the Halloween indicator, since you buy back in October. Let me say that again. It's sometimes called the Halloween indicator since you buy back in October. Let's take a look real quick. Because if you look down here at these bottom parts, this is the average over all the years in March. Like I said, not the greatest month, plus or minus 52%. April, plus or minus 116%, not too bad. In May, 45, nah. June, 28. July, 16. August, 25. September, negative 13. October, plus 62. November, plus 125. December, plus 29. Those are just the averages. So when we take a look here, maybe there's something to that. Of course, investing should not be that easy. But the odd thing is that compared with other rules, this one has held up rather well in history. Basically, looking historically over many decades, the markets have tended to return closer to 1% over the May to October period, the one we just talked about. And then 5% during the winter months on average. The data is from a long set, 1919 to 2017, and has been broadly true across 65 different countries where historical data is available. Interesting. So should you sell? That's a question you got to ask yourself. Short-term trading can have tax consequences, and this is huge. If you're trading your portfolio every 6 months, then that may mean short-term gains rather than long-term gains if you're in taxable account. So I don't know where you're at, but if you're like in the Netherlands, it sucks. Those capital gains are awful. If you're in France, worse. Ireland, it's super high. United States is no better. There are some great places. Puerto Rico, I pay 0%. And guess what? I'm probably not going to sell. Should I sell? Yeah, probably. But will I? Probably not, because I don't really need it right now. I'm looking at 3, 4, 5 years down the road. But again, my goals aren't your goals. So again, you have to think to yourself, do I really want to sell? And like after one of the shows at DCA, it was me, James, and Ben were talking, and James is like, he's making a killing in, his trades. He's like, but damn it, these capital gains are crushing me. And I'm like, just move to Puerto Rico, just like you should do. Actually, and if you want to take a look at my recommendations, I'm going to pop up the Puerto Rico video up here at some point. And you can take a gander at that, Act 60 and all the different pitfalls I went through. So you have to think to yourself, again, is it worth for the taxes? That's up to you to say. Also, market timing. Selling stocks can often be easier than buying back in. It can be easy to find a reason to leave the market, but having the courage to buy back in may not be as easy and be just as important. I got to tell you, I got the opposite problem. I have no problems buying dips and things like that. I got a problem selling. And that's been one of my Achilles heels. But hey, what are you going to do? Still has worked out okay, I think. So that is essentially what we have for sell in May and go away. Now it's up for you to decide if this is something that you want to do or something you want to pass on. Not investment advice, just investment opinion, which leads me to my last point. What I'll be doing during these months. Don't follow my advice. It's just me. Me personally, I'm going to do the exact same thing I did in 2018. When things start to slide down, and maybe they will, maybe they won't. No one has a crystal ball. I don't. I can't see the future. But if they do slide down precipitously, I'll probably still be buying and dollar cost averaging. I'm still dollar cost averaging Bitcoin and Ethereum and Luna and some other ones every single day. So this won't really change me too much unless we start to really fall down. Then what I'll do is I'll buy even more of it. So that's what I will do. And then also I have this, what's called my wealth preservation stack. So I'm going to tell you a story. This is a newsletter called The Daily Upside. It's free. I have a link if you want to check it out, but it just gives you the macro view of what's going on. And it's every single morning. It's pretty cool. It'll tell you stuff like corporate spending, 750 million, getting tired. No, this isn't it. The SEC proposes rule to force companies to disclose climate risks. It's going to be big for Bitcoin, I think. But it just kind of gives you a macro view of traditional finance. But this one caught my eye. A silkscreen portrait of legendary Hollywood starlet Marilyn Monroe by Andy Warhol would put up for auction this spring with an asking price of $200 million. Christie's announced Monday. So they're going to sell that for $200 million. They will probably get it because if you know anything about Christie's, when they put things up, actually sometimes go for a lot more. It's the highest asking price for any piece of art auction in history. Why did I bring this up? Because I'm here to tell you, rich people are crazy. And they'll buy art like it's going out of style. And what does that mean? Well, for me, when I actually make the gains, what do I do with it? Well, I can only put so much into real estate real estate isn't that great right now. It's super overpriced. I can buy more crypto and just leave it in there, which is what I do. But there's a small percentage, what I call my exit strategy, is where about 5% I do things like this. There's this thing. It's called Masterworks. I've talked about this many times. You can buy fractionalized shares of art. And why is that great? Because if you're looking for some place to stick it, if you can put it in the bank, that's great. But inflation is going to get you 7, 8, 9%, 15%, whatever you believe it to actually be true. So putting the money in the bank is not a good idea for me. Investment opinion, investment advice. And I will just say that they've done a pretty outstanding job. Year over year, 32% for a Banksy, 31% for George Condo. I don't even know who that is. Albert Olin, 33%. Again, I don't know any of these artists except for Banksy. I actually have a Banksy. I bought 2 artists, a Basquiat and a Banksy. So compare the S&P 500, 9.9, contemporary art, 14%. And sometimes you get stuff like 33%. So I'm investing into that. There is a link in the description. I'll show you in a second. And I did a whole video about why I did this. Also, you got your iTrust. If you're looking for a Roth IRA, you can put it into crypto, because guess what? If you don't want to pay taxes and you don't want to move to Puerto Rico, this will be the next best thing. So if you buy Bitcoin now, maybe when you retire in 10, 15, 20 years, you don't have to pay 1 cent of taxes. You can save yourself. Also, I still invest in the iTrust capital, because guess what? I never know when this is going to go away as far as with Puerto Rico. There's rumblings of it right now from the Takeaway Act 60. So I am leaving nothing up to chance. So I will still use that. And then also, of course, you're in America. Sorry, taxes are due. So use cryptotrader.tax. You just put all your information in. Direct API integration takes about 30 minutes. Then my CPA, boom, 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 done. Again, links in the description. Look just like this. Bang, bang, bang. And that's it. So that's it for today. 20 minutes. I think I hit that. I think I did okay. A lot of stuff today, but I thought it was warranted. So look, now we're going to do the 5 questions in 5 minutes. If you have to take off, that's cool. I understand. There's a lot of things going on. If you wouldn't mind, hit that like button. It's the only way that I think that YouTube understands that this isn't some crazy, wacky video, and then actually push it out to more people. Also consider subscribing. Do this every day. So not bad for a notification. And that's it. Let's do 5 questions in 5 minutes and get out of here, huh? All right. Number 1. BitBoy said 1 million this year. Right, guys? I don't know. Everybody makes crazy predictions, right? This is why I'm not doing them anymore, because they're worthless. They're just junk. And even though I got a couple right, I got many wrong. So no more price predictions. I will give you one price prediction for today. Bitcoin this year will be between just this year, 40,000 and 100,000. That's my price prediction. That's it. Bill O'Leary says, everybody's saying Bitcoin is the answer, but all the YouTubers can't wait to sell their Bitcoin for fiat. I get a kick out of it. I do too. I'm not here to sell Bitcoin though, but I suppose so. Like I said, everybody's got their options to do whatever they want to do. I personally will be staying in this for the long run. I think Bitcoin could, at some point, hit some pretty high 6 figures. I don't know about 7 figures. But again, I like to keep things into assets, hard assets that appreciate. Great question. Not Meme says, hey, Rob, is there a meetup tonight? No, there's not. So we usually do it every 2 weeks. Usually Wednesday we do it. I had a lot of things go on. And then I will actually be leaving Puerto Rico for a couple months, going back to Texas. So I leave next Saturday. So what I want to do is have like a bon voyage. So next Wednesday, we'll do the meetup. So sorry about that. I messed up the time frame. And hopefully that answers your question. That's number 1. Number 2, how safe is lending stablecoins? It depends on the platform that you are on. It's hard to say, in all honesty, because how much do you know every platform? You never know. And sometimes there's things that you'll never know that are going on behind the scenes. I kind of look at exchanges and platforms like swans. I've said this before. Like swans up above, they look very graceful and peaceful, and nothing's going on, right? And everything's on the up and up. But underneath that water, they're paddling like crazy, trying to get somewhere. So I don't know what's going on, but like for me personally, like for stablecoins, like I put mine on Voyager, have never had a problem with Voyager. I have some on Celsius, never had a problem with Celsius. Those are 2. And it's up to you to kind of figure out what it is. But I will say, if you don't feel comfortable, then don't put them on exchanges, because every exchange is hackable. It can happen. Just some are just harder to hack than others. Let's see. That's a great question. This question number 3. Question: if 900 Bitcoins are mined every day, all right, and reportedly 5,000 plus Bitcoin are leaving exchanges each day, what will happen if it runs out? You have to remember, first of all, this supply shock, I've been hearing about this forever too, and I'm still waiting for this supply shock. Even if first of all, the Bitcoin miners aren't really selling too much of their Bitcoin, and I can tell you exactly where to find that data. And let me just pull this up. There's this website, and it's called Crypto Quant. And I'm going to sign in. And I'm going to go to my dashboard. And miners are right here. Let's blow this up, shall we? So this is 2011, when miners, in 2010, when miners, Bitcoin miners would sell like crazy because no one knew what the hell was going on. They're like, well, to sell this and there. Lots of selling, right? But then as we move over here, there's almost zero. But let's zoom in just to get a little bit better perspective. Okay, back here in 2020, can someone sound off in the comments and tell me when the Great Migration was for all the Bitcoin miners in China when they got kicked out? I thought it was around here, which would make sense of why they sold a lot of Bitcoin, because they had to move all their rigs. Makes sense, right? Then you have over here. And if you look, since 2021, Bitcoin miners aren't selling a lot of their Bitcoin. They are hoarding it for the long haul, even now here. So, yeah, 1,613, so not too much. So the question is then, well, what about all the Bitcoin that gets taken off the exchanges? Well, there's always going to be somebody else who's going to put Bitcoin on the exchange and sell it. Here's the thing. I'm just going to be honest with you. If all the Bitcoin gets taken off of the exchanges and everybody's holding with diamond hands, and someone's like, I'd like to buy that for 50,000. There's none. Okay, 100,000. There's none. 250,000. There's none. $500,000. There's none. Okay, I'll pay $1 million. I will take my one Bitcoin and sell it to you. No questions asked, for $1 million. There's always sellers and there's always buyers. Well, not always, but you get the gist of it. So just know that it's not so much the miners selling, but there's always a demand. So, there's sometimes a demand, I should say. Hopefully I answer your question. Alchemist, congrats on the 8 holders. I sold mine at $1.30. Hey, are we here to make a profit? Or are we here to change the world? Some people are here to do both. Yeah, so another question. Well, it's like it's a statement. You can make good money mining helium at home, and the machine only costs $500. Yes, so the helium miners and the helium token is a really great project trying to 5G networks and trying to get for cellular service and things like that. Gary Gensler trying to cut my feed. So the thing that I remember about those miners was that they were like a big backlog order. Hopefully maybe they've made some more, but I had a problem. I was trying to do it, and it just wouldn't let me because I couldn't get a miner. So that's it. So Don't Doomer says, is 150 Solana enough to retire in 10 years? Question number 4. Maybe, I don't know. Depends on where you want to retire. Do you want to retire in Los Angeles? I don't care if Solana is going for like $1,000 per token at that point, or $10,000, even $10,000 a token. If you're going to try to move to Los Angeles, it's going to be tough. But you're trying to move to Thailand, Bangkok, some places like that. Not Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is expensive. It just depends on when you want to live. And that, I think, is the bigger question. What do you want as far as your quality of life? I can't answer you for that one. Sorry. One Mullet's here. I saw you in the chats, man. Thanks for being here. Always a pleasure. Speaking of traders, there's a guy. I didn't fall asleep. Your cousin, Gary Gensler, tried to cut my feed. You know how it works. Okay. Mining used to be, yeah. Helium mining used to be way more profitable. Everyone and their mama's on it. That's right. That's the only problem. And I think we got one more question. Thailand is getting more expensive. I believe that. I think everything's being more expensive. That's the problem with printing a bunch of money. Great question. Number 5. If they changed the law of taxes in Puerto Rico, would you consider moving out? No. In the beginning, probably. When I first moved here, let me get this out of here. Because I was, it's tough to like get into a new place, kind of understand everything and really get into the culture. But as I've moved here and I've met more people and done more things, I really like this place. So even if they removed Act 60 and said, sorry, sucker, you can't, capital gains, da-da-da, I'd still move. I'd still live here. It's pretty great. Now, if they came back and said, hey, capital gains at 50%, see ya, I'm out of here. But in all honesty, if they came up and said, hey, we're going to charge you capital gains, and it's going to be 3%, 4%, 5%, and we're going to make this, static for 5 years or whatever it is, I'll be okay with that. It's better than 20% or 33 or 43 or 47%, depending on what tax bracket you're in, long or short-term capital gains. But I got to tell you, again, watch that video on Puerto Rico. This place is pretty great, especially to be here for relaxation. And I know a lot of people out there, they want money and Lambos and mansions and things like that. I just want time. Just my own time. That's it. So that's it. So look, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. If you like today's video, give it a thumbs up, give it a like, all that great stuff. Consider subscribing. And that's it for today. So thanks so much for watching. I do appreciate it. And I'll see you on the next one. Adios.